Hello, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Layla, and for today's video, we're going to be talking about how your income probably is not enough for you to thrive and what to do about it. So I was a little bit hesitant to make this video, and it'll kind of make sense as I talk about things, but I think this is an important topic. And even if you are in a position where you feel like you do earn enough money to thrive, like maybe you're in a job where you're making over 6 figures or multiple 6 figures, and that's something that's going to stay around for a long while, and you have your finances in order and such, so you are able to thrive. But there are also people who are in situations where their current income is enough to thrive off of, but they're making either irresponsible decisions, or they have in the past where they are still living paycheck to paycheck despite having a high income. Or there is still the possibility where you could lose your job. So if this is like your only source of income, even if you're making $200,000, but you got laid off tomorrow, you have nothing there to support you. So yeah, if you fall into one of those two categories, or if you're somebody who feels like their full-time job, their main source of income is not enough money for you to thrive off of, I think the content that I'm going to talk about, like what to do about it section of this video, will be helpful for all three of you. The reason this came up is because over the last month or two, I've been, wrapping up 2023, putting together videos and taking a look at my finances for the past year. 2023 for me was a very strong year as far as my finances go. I became debt-free. I was able to save a lot of money. I was able to invest quite a bit of money. I even was able to save enough money to use to invest money for 2024. Y'all know that I was saving for my 2024 Roth IRA so that I would have the full amount by the time 2024 came around. And when I was looking at everything and adding up all my numbers, and I had mentioned this in one of my videos, the main reason that I was able to make such large progress on my goals, how I was able to reach all of my goals, is because of income from what I was doing on the side. If I only had my full-time job, I would not be where I am today. That's like 100% fact. And I'm going to show you what I mean right now. All right, so y'all are looking at a very simple spreadsheet, not too much going on here, but I'm going to explain these numbers. So up at the top, this is the income that I earned, the exact gross income that I earned from my full-time consulting job. $70,565. And that's for 2023. So January 2023 through December 2023. At the start of the year, my pay was like 63,000 something for the year, like my base salary. I did get a bonus in March, and then I got a promotion the following month. I think that started like officially in May. So I received a 12% pay increase. Any like typical raise, bonus, even a promotion is not that big of a jump when you're in the 60,000s, or obviously if you're lower than that. But yes, this is everything that I earned gross from my full-time job. And then you'll see a list of my expenses. For the most part, this is fairly accurate, but let me explain everything. So taxes, this is exactly what I paid for taxes. This is what came out of my paychecks. I added everything up, $15,206.72. I put more than this to my 401k, but I wanted to keep this at just 6%. So this is because that's what my company matches. So for the most part, like if I was only working my full-time job, I probably could only afford to do a 6% just so I could take advantage of that match. So just wanted to keep it at that. So that's $4,233.90 to my 401k. That's pretty good. And I know that this is for the company that I work at. They match 6%, and I know a lot of people don't even have that. Some don't even. At my previous job, I did not have a 401k available to me. Obviously, with no 401k, there was not a match. I didn't have any sort of investing or retirement benefits, and so at this point in my life, I definitely felt behind because I had no retirement outside of my Roth IRA. Anyways, that's not really the point. What I'm saying there is, at least that's good. Like I'm putting a little bit to my 401k, and then my company is matching, so it would be double that, and that's like a good start. But 8,000 or so invested in the year isn't gonna. I'll have to work forever, but that's kind of what we're getting at. Next up would be rent and utilities. Now, currently where I live now, I live with my boyfriend, and I pay much less here. But for 4 years before that, I was living on my own in a fairly expensive apartment. I moved in at a good time. It was, 4 years ago, more than 4 years ago, and prices at that point were not as high as they were now. But when I left my apartment, I was paying like $1,500 plus, I think like $1,550 or so for just my rent, and then I had utilities and stuff on top of that. So I added all of that together, like what it would have cost me for the year if I stayed at the apartment. This isn't even accounting for the rent increase that I would have seen. I would have had to pay like an extra 100 something per month, so this probably would have been higher if I actually stayed, but I wanted to keep this. Here's the math on it. So $1,537 for rent, obviously times 12 for the full year, and then my utilities, including Wi-Fi, water, and electricity, on average would have added up to about $1,872. So yeah, had I stayed at my apartment, it probably would have roughly been this, but I know for most people, like if you're on your own, it's probably going to cost you more, because I know that $1,500 for rent is on the low end for where I was living for sure. I know that the year prior, I was negotiating my rent over, back in 2021, and they had told me that we can get a tenant in your exact apartment for over $2,000. So yeah, household is about $600 for me each year. I would say maybe a little bit higher. Groceries, I spend about $400 per month. This is probably higher, like $5,000. Food out, I'm pretty good about not eating too much food out. This would probably be higher if I was, maybe it wouldn't if I was single, but yeah, for the most part, this is about what I stick to. Gas for my car is also low because I work remote. I did pay over $3,000 for my sister and I's dogs. Car insurance cost me about $1,300. Car maintenance, I paid about $700. This does not include my savings. Obviously, Netflix is on there. Health and beauty, this is lower than what I typically would pay, but I could probably get away with budgeting like $200 per month. Student loans, I put on as $200 per month. I saved a lot more in 2023 specifically. Obviously, each year I was paying significantly more for my student loans, or saving for my student loans so that I could pay them off, but that's because I wanted to pay them off faster. Now, would I have been able to do that if I only had this income? No, because as you can see here, what I accounted for is I was just pretending I had a $200 minimum payment. And if I were to do that, I would be paying $2,400 to my student loans, and because of, assuming interest was normal, I would be only paying down like $2,000 of my debt. Paying for a gym membership, that's something most people do. Fun and entertainment, I feel like I don't spend too much on that, so I put it at $800. Personal, $2,000 is probably on the low end, but yeah, $2,000, $3,000 or so for myself each year. Gifts is about $900 each year. I said, okay, with these numbers, just $70,000, I could probably spare $200 to savings each month. And then if I wanted to travel, like just take one trip, I could probably afford $1,500, maybe a little bit more. And if you see here, if we go down to the bottom, the difference between my expenses and my income is $5,686. This is pretty reflective of what I would spend on an annual basis. But in reality, I think these numbers, even for myself, are on the low end. Obviously, I am investing a little bit with my 401k, and like I said, getting the company match, so that's a good start. I am saving a little bit. I probably could bump this up quite a bit. I mean, depending, if I increased a bunch of things here, which I probably should, like I definitely spend more on groceries. I spent more on the dogs, and sometimes things come up with like, larger emergencies, and it does cost more in the year. Health and beauty, that has costed me more before in a year, etc. Like if I were to adjust that, this would be much lower. So with this example, I am putting a little bit to savings, and that's good. I don't have to travel, if I, it's not a necessity, and I could cut that out and instead put it to savings or investing. But what I'm getting at here is that with this $5,000, I would not have been able to max out my Roth IRA and save all the money that I saved. Like I added $6,000 to my emergency fund in 2023. I added an extra $7,000 to a sinking fund so I could max out my Roth IRA for 2024. I think altogether I saved like, almost $20,000 in the year. And that was definitely not because of my full-time job. Like this is the exact example. I wouldn't be debt-free at this point if I didn't have my side hustles. I probably would not have maxed out my Roth IRA last year and the year before if I did not have my side hustles. I definitely would not have as much as I have saved right now if I didn't have my side hustles. I wouldn't have traveled to the places that I have traveled to if I didn't have my side hustles. Maybe a couple of them, but definitely not in combination with everything that I've been able to accomplish over the last few years. And what's crazy, there's a couple of things here. 70,000 is not considered a low income, you know? And I'm aware of that. I'm completely aware of that, and that's why I was hesitant to make this video, because I didn't want people to be like, oh, 70,000, like you should be doing amazing, and that is so much money. I understand. That's a lot of money compared to what other people make, and that's a problem. Like if you are at 40,000 per year, or even 50,000 a year, that is just not enough money. That's not enough money, and I'm not saying that's anybody's fault. Like that is not, whoever is working, that's not necessarily their fault, right? In general, this is a society thing, and there's always going to be people, there's always going to have to be people who work jobs that earn less money, you know? I'm not saying that that necessarily is fair or anything like that, but that's just the reality of what it is. But the reason I'm making this video is for you who is watching this and maybe in a similar situation to what I am, where you're making 70,000 or 60,000, 50,000, anything lower, or potentially even anything higher depending on where you live. Like if you're making 100,000 but you live in California, like you could be in the same situation too, right? So if you're somebody who's watching this, you can change the situation is what I'm getting at. But back to what I was saying. So that's one thing that's crazy, is there's people who make less of an income and who are trying to, you know, if you are living on your own, having to pay groceries. If you make less than this and you have children, don't even get me started on that. I don't know how people do that. That's wild. This would be off the charts, you know? The second thing that's crazy is that I am a pretty frugal person. Obviously, I'm very aware of my finances, and I consider myself somebody who does not overspend, and is obviously I budget and I track my spending. There are times when I go over my budget, of course, but it's never anything that's like, wow, I can't afford that. Like I'm not going into further debt and such. So I put together these numbers over here. Let me highlight this in a different color so you can just kind of see the difference. On the right hand side, I kept everything the same. Like if you had the same income, same taxes, still put money to your 401k, blah, blah, blah. Even if you were paying the same in rent and utilities, right? But if we adjusted these numbers for how people actually spend their money, even if you're paying attention to your finances, there are some people who want to be better with their money, but they go out to eat too much or spend too much on personal things, or really want to travel. So they spend their money, right? So I accounted for that. I bumped up groceries. I bumped up food out. Like a lot of people I talk to, and even that I work with, like clients of mine, they spend a lot on food out. So this is even being generous, I would say. Gas, a lot of people spend more than I do on gas if you have a commute to work. So I bumped that to 2,000. I left dogs at 3,000 because a lot of people do have pets, but if you have children, that it's probably going to be even more if you have children. Car insurance I left, but this is also usually higher for people depending on where you live, or if you got a speeding ticket, got into a wreck, etc. Car maintenance I kept a couple of these the same. I lowered health and beauty just to be like, you know, some people don't like spend too much on health and wellness. I bumped up student loans as if their monthly payment was $400 per month, because that's probably the reality for most people. I also added in credit cards because most people have credit card debt. So I said, okay, if we have 3 credit cards with a minimum payment of $75 for the full year, you're paying about that much. If you have a car payment, a lot of people have car payments, and those are not cheap these days. So I put this at $550 per month. That's what we're looking at there. You still have a gym membership, fun and entertainment. Most people are spending more than $800 a year, so I bumped that to $2,000. Going to concerts, going to shows, going to I don't know what, but I'm sure they spend more than $800. Personal, I bumped up a little because I think $3,000 sounds about average. I kept these other ones the same just because if we come down to the bottom, the difference here is we're in the negatives. Negative 12,000 at that. Like it's not possible. So what we would have to do, we'd have to cut out the savings, put that at 0. If you don't travel at all, okay, so none of that. Even if you cut back on personal spending, put it to $1,500. If you cut back on fun and entertainment, like, do you see where I'm getting at here? This is still negative. Like, you wouldn't have enough money. You would need to go into further debt. And this is exactly the cycle that people are in. So at this point, because you're still not able to keep up with everything, you're going to have to cut out that 6% to your 401k, because even though you're getting a match and that's free money and you should be doing that, you can't, because instead of going into $6,000 of debt, instead you'll go into $1,800 of debt. A lot of people are probably watching this and like, yeah, I know, I'm living that. Like, this isn't news to me. But this is exactly why it's so important to stay on top of your finances and just be financially literate in general. Have knowledge on finances, specifically personal finances, your personal finances, and to be doing things that prioritize you in your life. And what I mean by that is that we are in a system where they want you to live this way. They want it to be difficult for you because it benefits them. Now, we don't need to go into like why that is or blaming anybody and feeling bad about it. You just have to look out for yourself, because in my opinion, that's like one of the most important things that you can do. Because just talking about it, just being angry about it, blaming other people, that's not going to get you any further. But if you actually take steps to get yourself into a better financial situation, then you can make a difference. Then you can break that normalcy. And this isn't going to be the case for everybody. Like I was saying before, it's just the way things are. Like, there's always going to be people who are not going to have as much money, you know, and they're going to be working jobs where they're making low incomes and basically in poverty, right? But if you are watching this, you can make a difference, and that's what I want to talk about. And honestly, these tips that I'm going to share, they're nothing new, they're nothing crazy, they're nothing sexy, but like, you've probably heard them all before, but they're so important, and I want to mention them here, and I can expand on them even more in other videos, but I feel like I've kind of already done that. But if there's any of these that I mention and you want me to expand on them more, like create more videos around that, then let me know and I will do that. So the first thing is that you need to be budgeting and you need to be tracking your spending. Because if you're not aware of where your money is going, then you are going to be spending too much, and you're never going to break this cycle of either going into further debt or living paycheck to paycheck. I make a video every single month where I am sharing my budget. I have a video on how to create your own budget in Google Sheets. I even have a free template that you can use. That's linked down below in my description box. It can be a little bit overwhelming and difficult to get started, but just start, you know, like make a budget for the upcoming month. And then throughout that month, you need to be tracking your spending and logging that into your budget so that going forward, you set yourself up for success for all of your future budgets. If this is something that you end up finding really, really difficult or challenging, then I'm going to suggest my debt-free blueprint course, because I talk all about how to set up your budget, like literal step-by-step. I have videos, I have templates for you to use, and it will help you so much in figuring out what you need to budget for each category, how to even set up your budget, all the things. So that will be linked down below. Or you can work with me one-on-one and we will create a budget together. And it's my favorite thing to do, so I would love to work with you. Number 2, you need to pay down your debt and you need to stay out of debt, especially high interest debts and anything that's costing you hundreds of dollars per month. I know not everybody is a fan of the debt-free lifestyle. I know there are some people who can leverage debt, having mortgages and having business debt and such, but most people will benefit from being completely debt-free, at least completely debt-free aside from your mortgage. But if you're living like this with a lower income, then you probably will, unfortunately, never get to getting a mortgage, you know, or it's going to be really, really difficult, or it's going to take you decades. And that's honestly just how things are right now. Yes, everything is more expensive for sure, but you're not doing yourself any favors by having credit card debt or monthly payments through Affirm and Klarna, stuff like that. Car debt, pay that off as soon as you can. And yes, of course, it would also be really helpful if you stay out of debt. So if you start making progress on your debt, I guarantee you will get more motivated as you budget and track your spending. You will, for the most part, most people will start to enjoy it, and you're going to adjust how you spend your money, adjust your priorities, and it will be easier for you to stay out of debt. Like, you can break those bad habits that you had before that got you into debt previously. And yeah, it's going to make a world of a difference, because instead of you having to pay thousands of dollars to your debt each year, taking away from your hard-earned income, you can instead save that, invest it, etc. Number 3 is to create multiple streams of income. Now, there are many ways that you can do this. I know that it sucks that we almost have to. That's not the way that it should be. Like we should be able to have one job. And especially, if you went to school and stuff and you were told like, oh, if you go to school and you get your degree and get a job, like, you will be fine. We should be able to just have one job and be able to feel comfortable and to thrive. But that is honestly just not the reality of how things are today. So no, it shouldn't be a necessity for you to have multiple streams of income or a side hustle or a second job, but I think it's so important. If I didn't have my business on the side, like I said before, I would not be where I'm at today. At this point in my journey, I now receive income from like 7 or 8 sources, but for the most part, it comes from one thing, and that is creating content. That's having this YouTube channel, having my blogs, and being a financial coach and such. It's all kind of come from one thing and blossomed into multiple streams of income. But wherever you're at, just start something. If that is buying items at the thrift store and flipping them onto Poshmark or eBay, great. If that is you getting a second job, driving for Uber, Instacart, DoorDash, great. Even smaller things like opening accounts like I do on a regular basis to get extra income throughout the year. If you're able to do that, then it's great for you to just generate any amounts that can support you. But this really could be anything. It could be something small like you're tutoring, you're babysitting, that sort of thing, or you could go on and start your own business if you wanted to. I'm not saying that that's necessary, but the other exciting thing about that is if you want to kind of escape this, getting paid a lower income, even though you are like literally making hundreds of $1,000s for the company that you're working at. That's definitely part of the reason why I created businesses on the side, is so that I could eventually escape that, as y'all know. The corporate life is just not for me. That's completely fine if it is for you. But having multiple streams of income is going to help you no matter what, because obviously it's going to supplement your income so you can save more, invest more, get out of debt faster. But also, if you were to lose your job or if some major emergency came up where it cost you a lot more money, you have that backup income. It's kind of like that metaphor where if you have a table that is on one leg, if you chop off that one leg of the table's going to fall over. But if you have a table with 4 legs and you chop off one, it's going to be a little, teetering, but it should be able to hold itself up a little bit, and then you can get that leg back. And these days, I feel like there are so many ways to create multiple streams of income. We have this whole online space. It's incredible what's out there. It can take time. It can be challenging and a little bit frustrating. You're going to probably compare yourself to other people, but there's so many options out there. Then number 4, the final thing, is to increase your income in general. And that could be multiple things. So if you need to switch the industry that you're working in, that could be really helpful. That's something that I did. So I was actually making less than this a couple of years ago because I have my master's degree in biology. And, that doesn't really mean anything, but it feels like because I have that, I should make more money, because I invested more into myself, into my education. I was a microbiologist for 4 years, and I was making like $60,000. And I intentionally switched over into tech so that I could increase my income and also like work remotely and have all these other benefits. Now, I'm not making as much as other people in this industry. I definitely thought I would be earning more at this point, but it's definitely a possibility. Like if I stayed in this industry for a couple more years, I would get past 6 figures. And a lot of people who are doing the work that I'm doing are making over 6 figures, and they're able to thrive just off of their one job, right? But still, when I did make the switch, I did end up making more money, and I got the benefits of working remote plus the 401k match and really good insurance, all that stuff. So that's one thing. There are many people who are switching from one industry to another to increase their income. Otherwise, you could switch from your current job to another job because you potentially are being underpaid at your current company, and if you jump somewhere else, you could significantly increase your income. So that could mean cleaning up your resume, working on some networking, practicing your interviewing skills and applying to a bunch of jobs so that you can bump up your pay, I think it's worth your time and energy. And wherever you're at currently, make sure you advocate for yourself. If you think you deserve a raise, or if you haven't received a raise recently, if you have a performance evaluation coming up, make sure you voice that you are interested in getting a raise and have all of these points lined up as to why you should get this raise. Even if it's just a little bit of an increase, that's still better than nothing. And if it's something that you're unhappy with, then you can search elsewhere. But I do think a lot of people are undercutting themselves because they're afraid to talk about money, and you have to advocate for yourself, because your manager isn't necessarily going to do that. Your boss isn't going to be like, oh yeah, you should get this raise because of this. Like, if you don't call it out, they may never call it out because they're going to think they can get away with it, and they can. So speak up for yourself when you think you are deserving of one, and you may just be one question away from getting a very large pay increase. So definitely worth it. There's a lot more things that I could say around this topic. I have a lot of opinions on corporate America and just the structure of work as it is. And maybe I'll talk about that more one day, but that's what I got for this video. Hopefully this was helpful. I just really want to encourage y'all to, stand up for yourselves and prioritize yourself in your life. Things the way that they are don't have to be this way. And I'm not saying that it's going to be easy or that this is how things should be, but this is the importance of showing up for yourself and paying attention to your financial situation and just learning more about finances so that you can thrive in this world, Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if you want me to expand on any of these topics. I would be happy to. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. It really supports my channel, and I'll see you in my next one.